All right, guys, here we go. So, this story came out the other day, and it was quite a shocker, if I'm being honest with you. BBC reports Italian fascist salute images spark political uproar. So you can see the picture here. But all these guys, not only are they doing the fascist salute, they're also wearing black shirts, which is exactly like Mussolini's black shirts, who were like the fascist thug security people. So this is not good. When like the fascists are now at the point where they feel like we could just hold a rally and do our thing, I think we've fallen quite a bit. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni is being urged to ban neo-fascist groups after hundreds of men were seen giving fascist salutes during a rally in Rome on Sunday night. They were taking part in an annual commemoration for 3 far-right activists who were killed in the 1970s, allegedly by far-left militants, but a video shared on social media has thrust the event into the spotlight. In it, rows of black-clad men can be seen extending their right arms. They are also heard shouting, "Present," in response to the rallying cry for all fallen comrades, a slogan typical of the Italian far right. The rally is held every year to commemorate the 1978 killings of 3 teenage activists from the youth wing of the far-right Italian social movement. 2 were shot dead by suspected far-left militants outside MSI headquarters on Via Acca Larentia in Rome, while the third was killed by police in riots that followed the shooting. No one was ever prosecuted for the killings, which have become widely known as the Acca Larentia massacre. Sunday night's scenes have been condemned by both parties across the political spectrum. Ellie Schlein, the leader of the center-left Democratic Party, and the images from the rally, quote, said the images from the rally look like 1924, referring to the era of fascist leader Benito Mussolini and his black-shirted militias. What happened is unacceptable. Neo-fascist groups must be disbanded, as the Constitution spells out, Ms. Schlein added. So let me just point out real quick that, because this is an important distinction to make. In the U.S., we have the First Amendment, we have free speech, we have free expression, and you basically have a right to be as loathsome as you want to be in, as terrible a group as you want to be in, as long as it's not a literal criminal enterprise. You could be ideologically extreme, and that's fine, but if you actually are like a criminal gang, then there's a problem. But they don't have those sorts of protections in many places in the rest of the world. So, if you're part of some fascist group, they could just say, we are banning the fascist group. So it's a little bit different how it functions there versus how it functions here. The leader of the centrist Azioni party, Carlo Calenda, said the Assa Acca Larentia commemoration was an unacceptable disgrace in a European democracy. Now remember, let me just pause to point out, Giorgia Meloni, who's the leader of Italy, she was part of a far-right party, and there's video of her when she was young, literally praising Benito Mussolini. So I'm sure there are some sympathies that are there between the ruling party and what these people are doing. Deputy Prime Minister Antonio Tajani, the leader of the center-right party Forza Italia, said that any celebration of dictatorship should be condemned and added that there is a law stating that you cannot make an apology for fascism in our country. Even some members of the Brothers of Italy party, which has its political roots in the MSI, so the same group that was the far-right group, have criticized the scenes. Giovanni Donzelli said that FDI had nothing to do with what has happened, and that those taking part in the event were 200 idiots that the left will use to judge us. However, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, who is also the leader of FDI, has so far stayed silent on the matter. Interesting. Ms. Meloni has commemorated the 1978 killings in the past. In 2021, she posted a Facebook tribute to the 3 slain activists, saying the killings were a tragedy where no culprit has ever been found, and calling them a wound that has never healed. Her equivocation stems from her own political background. Age 19, Ms. Meloni told journalists that she considered Italy's wartime fascist leader Benito Mussolini a good politician. She entered Italian politics as a member of the MSI. In recent years, she has tried to reposition herself as more moderate, rejecting the label far-right and declaring that her party had consigned fascism to history. But critics point to the fact that the party logo still has the tricolor flame, long a symbol of neo-fascism, and will see in her silence on the scenes from Acca Larentia a nod to the more extremist side of her support base. The images from Acca Larentia commemoration went viral after they were shared by La Repubblica correspondent Paolo Berizzi, but events of this kind are not unusual in Italy. Every year, hundreds of Mussolini supporters gather in his hometown of Predappio and hold commemorative rallies that feature fascist-era slogans and gestures. Such events spark controversy on a regular basis, with opposition parties calling for police to investigate. However, unlike Germany, where the use of right-wing extremist symbols is banned, Italy does not have a law that prohibits the use of fascist imagery or gestures. There are buildings and monuments across Italy bearing Mussolini's name. Oh, that's interesting. So they're not as hardcore as Germany on that. Laws do exist against apology for fascism, but they are vague and rarely enforced. In 2017, an attempt at passing title legislation failed after right-wing parties argued the proposed bill would threaten freedom of speech. To be fair, they're not actually wrong on that. On Tuesday, Ignacio La Russa, a key ally of Ms. Meloni, who, as Senate Speaker, holds Italy's second highest office of state, weighed into the debate, stating that making fascist salutes was not always a crime. Mr. La Russa, who is a known collector of fascist memorabilia and has busts of Mussolini in his home, told Italian media that there was still uncertainty over how certain gestures are considered if they were made in the context of a commemoration of the dead. He added that he was looking forward to an upcoming verdict by the Court of Cassation, which is set to determine whether making the fascist salute constitutes a crime. Okay, so look, again, here's the picture of it. There's actually a video of it as well where they're doing the fascist chant and the fascist salute, and they're wearing the black shirts. And look, they know what they're doing. So the reason why this is important is very simple. We're coming apart at the seams. Not just in the United States of America, where we obviously are coming apart at the seams. We have a senile guy who's sundowning, who can barely speak, who's almost certainly going to be the Democratic nominee because they're trying to rig the process to make sure he's the Democratic nominee. We have somebody with 91 felony charges against him on the Republican side. He tried to steal the last election. He's far right. He talks about terminating the Constitution. He uses Hitler quotes about immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country. Everything's falling apart. We see what's happening in Gaza right now with Israel, which is effectively acting as a fascist state, doing a genocide and ethnic cleansing and a slaughter. These are not these terms that I'm using. The language is stronger than I would have used in previous years because I care about accuracy and I care about specificity. And so I don't use the most weighted terminology unless I think it's absolutely positively merited and I'm convinced that it's accurate. But in this instance, it is accurate. So the U.S. is coming apart at the seams. We see what's happening in the Middle East. And now you have, in Italy and many other European countries, the rise of the far right. And they're at the point now where they don't even have to cloak it much, right? They don't even have to pretend to be more civil and more reasonable and more modern. And that's the scary part. Look, there's always going to be a far right and there's always going to be a far left and there's always going to be a center. But to outwardly and completely and wholly embrace the failures of past far-right fascist regimes, that is shocking to me, right? I don't see many examples of big, Maoist gatherings from left-wingers around the world or, Lenin gatherings. Regimes that didn't work out and were brutal and authoritarian, I feel like oftentimes the left is able to leave the baggage behind. And so when you see the left doing stuff, it's protesting for a ceasefire in Gaza, wanting universal health care, Medicare for all. On the right, they're just fascism. Let's try that fascism thing again. Let's not only try the fascism thing again, let's uphold previous extremist authoritarian failures that were fascist. Let's hold them up as some sort of ideal. And I didn't think, naively, we'd ever see the resurrection of effectively a dead and discredited and disproven and horrifically savage ideology. But that's what's happening. They're resurrecting it. And it's shocking to me. It's shocking. But you scratch beneath the surface just a little bit on some very conservative types, and immediately you see, oh, this is just fascism. They're just pro-fascism. And that's where we're at. And that's what we're seeing here in Italy. So when you have the complete and utter implosion and failure of the status quo, of the current system, of business as usual, that's going to lead to rising extreme solutions because the status quo doesn't work. Business as usual doesn't work. So people aren't looking for upholders of the system and the institutions. They're looking in extreme places for answers because we're in extreme times and that demands extreme change, extreme answers. And this is where we are. We're at the point where there's a rise of a belief in fascism again. I wish there was a way to put that genie back in the bottle and steer it in a proper direction, but it seems like that's not the case, right? And when stuff falls apart, people are either going to go populist right or populist left. And so far, we've seen a lot of movement in the populist far right direction, which again, you scratch beneath the surface and you see, oh, this is just fascism. Buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.